I'm Allie. I came out after 20 years of marriage, and I have 3 kids.
I'm Melissa, and I have 2 kids, and I came out at 37 after an 11-year marriage.
This podcast is about coming out later and the struggles and victories that come with it.
When coming out feels like the end of the world, but it's really just the beginning.
This is the Lesbian Chronicles. And there is like a feeling of like when I look back at my life and I look back at even when I was married, there was never a situation where like, you know, we'd have lots of people in our lives. We had young kids. We would, you know, have friends. We had our neighborhood friends, our school friends, whatever. You would run into people. And there was never like a man I would be like excited to see or that would like light me, like friends of ours, you know, it would be like, oh, I can't wait to see Jason and like hang out with him. He's so stimulating. But there were like women along the way that I would be like, I'm really psyched she's in Reed's class or that's the mom.
Oh, yeah.
Because there'd be like some kind of vibe between us that I can recall. Like it was almost like a palpable thing. And I wonder sometimes she might've been gay too. I don't know. But you hear these stories about people reaching back out to people that they haven't seen in years, that they felt something and it's like, it was real. But it was like always women for me. And that was like enough. I would have these relationships. None of them were anything. It wasn't even really flirting. It was just like a general excitement in my body.
Yeah.
That, to me, it's like as that went on, it's like that filled me up in a way. I can't, like, it's almost like I knew I was gay and I would think like, I'm excited to see this woman, but it was never a man. And I just think about people. I wonder if you could go through your whole life with those little experiences that kind of light you up.
Sure.
And never act on it, you know?
I hear about that happening a lot, like in like the suburban community.
Yeah.
Where women will just kind of like connect.
Yeah.
And like get these really deep friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then almost kind of go through like a little bit of a breakup.
Totally.
You know?
I feel like it happened to me.
This never happened to me, but I also like wouldn't allow myself to get that close to women.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had wall.
There's actually a lot of dynamics in friendship, maybe especially with women, that resemble the dynamics that kind of unfold in a dating relationship. You know, we've all heard that kind of like friendship crush idea.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you kind of come in and you're spending a lot of time together, you're texting all the time, and it sort of fades maybe after a while, or maybe, you know, I don't know, other boundaries get pushed or somebody...
You're jealous.
Yeah, or somebody decides, you know, they're getting married or they're having kids, and so the dynamic changes because of just circumstances in life. But yeah, I mean, when did you know, though, that there was a difference between being compelled by new female friendships and feeling satisfied versus... Now I think I want more than that in terms of a partnership.
Yeah, I think for me it was like when I had my 3rd baby, he started to get bigger and was like going to preschool. And then I remember like a feeling, I had a miscarriage. Early on, it wasn't like a big deal, but this would have been a 4th child. And it was almost like I thought if I had that baby, I love babies like that. I always have. I love babies. So I was like, if I could have had that baby, I could have hung in a little longer, but it was like the miscarriage along with Reed leaving for pre-K was like, I'm out of material.
You're out of the baby
here.
stage. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm out of material to keep me sustained in this house anymore. And I don't know. I remember like the miscarriage thinking I lost way more. I knew it in my mind. I'm not just losing this baby right now. I'm about to lose everything.
Wow.
And because I just could tell, like I wasn't working. I mean, I was just like, there was nothing else to keep me there but a friendship with a man, you know, and 3 amazing kids that I loved, but they were getting bigger. And it was just.
So it's a great example of a lot of things, but the thing that I'm kind of hearing, which is like what we were saying before about values, There was a real purpose and a real intent and sort of connection around being with this person, Chris, and having a family and diving in. And that was sort of the foundation of your commitment.
Right.
And so when that shifts or changes as our kids get older, and I think that's true for a lot of women, that when, you know, through your kids' developmental phases, you also go through developmental phases.
That's true.
That's around the time that it happened for me.
Yeah.
Was I think Bracken, my youngest, was around 3.
Wow. Yeah, be like Reed.
I was Googling, like, is it possible to have postpartum depression like 3 years later?
Yeah.
Because I just like couldn't figure out what was like so bonkers about me.
Right.
So,
and then enter the catalyst. And it's just like this, you're an addict and now here's this drug showing up. That's how it felt. It was like there was no stopping it. Mm-hmm.
That is true. It feels like once it starts.
Yeah.
Like you've pushed the domino, like, and they're all falling.
Now I'm definitely meeting you.
Yeah.
Even though I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
So, I think that's when I felt it.
Yeah.
But all along the way, there had been they weren't even crushes. Maybe it's a crush, but it would be more like just I'm excited about, oh my God, this woman's super cool, fun to hang out with, love talking to her.
Well, and even the way that you've kind of just described your own story. And I feel like it's similar with you too, Melissa, that you both kind of talk about having always had a sense of this part of who you are, but not really an understanding or a comfort or an idea of like where to put it or what to do with it.
Yeah.
Or where it fit. And so when things don't fit, we kind of find a place to store them.
That's true.
Right. And it, because it's in storage doesn't mean it's not something that belongs to you anymore.
And it was being preoccupied by all those things.
Right.
Right. The milestone conveyor belt of
ran out of milestones.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the next one? Divorce. Okay.
Exactly. Oh, I guess I'm gay. That's my next milestone.
Yeah.
That's definitely in all of the books.
Yeah.
What to expect when you're not expecting to be gay.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But some people do think they're gay and then they're not gay.
Well,
or they're gay, but they're like, it's not as big of a deal to them. I mean, think about our friends that have then ended up with men.
Yeah. And I think that's where the spectrum thing comes in.
Yeah. Sexuality is always, it's a fluid spectrum. It's not something where you're on one end of the continuum and that's where you stay for the rest of your life. For some people it is.
Yeah.
But not for everybody. It can be this thing where, it kind of comes in and out of your sense of consciousness, your sense of what's important to you and what you're needing and wanting at that time in your life.
Yeah. It's like for me, I can't understand these people that have been with women and then go back to men.
I can't either.
I can't wrap my brain around it.
Like once it happened, I was like, oh, like, okay, that's what I was supposed to feel all along.
And I think that's an example of what it feels like to be secure in your identity.
Right.
And that's not the same. That's for some people a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Identity is not necessarily the same thing as an experience of sexuality. Or you can have sexual orientation be a part of your identity, but not the defining sort of feature of how you move through the world and prioritize how you do relationships.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. So like you don't, like at what point, because we've came out, so it's like to Melissa and I for a long time, it's like gay, 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 gay. Everything about us is like, we're going to the gay thing. We're doing the podcast. It's all gay. At what point does it like, Maria doesn't even think about the fact that she's gay. She doesn't hang out with a lot of gay people. It doesn't come up for her almost at all. And it's like,
because it's been so long.
I guess, like, I wonder when do we get to be just Allie, the designer?
I mean, that's different for everybody. But one idea is that when it stops being this thing that you have to explain, justify, or somehow, like deal with as a thing that hasn't always come easy to you.
Yeah.
In other words, once it's sort of like fully integrated into your life and your sense of identity, it doesn't become a thing anymore. It's not something that you have to think about. Sometimes things are, I don't know, our attachments to things are sometimes a function of our relationship with that thing, or maybe our insecurities about that thing. And I think this is why some people, when they first come out, really have a very valid and important need for community.
Yeah.
Right. To be around people who.
Yeah, I think that's just it. It's like, it's still so fresh for us.
Right, right.
Like,
and not that will go away once you're more secure with it.
Yeah.
Because I think, that's not all of it. Community is important for everybody. But what were you going to say?
Well, just that, like, I still have these moments of being like, holy shit, like, I am divorced and gay now. Like, wait, what? Like, I just woke up and I'm like, holy shit. Like, that actually happened,
That's so true.
And, well,
I
what's
do the
funny
same
is
thing.
when I was married, I used to have this recurring dream where I was no longer married to Tom. And in my dream, I was just like, what happened?
Do you ever dream
how
about
did
having
that
sex with men?
You know, I think I had a dream within the past like 6 months where that did happen. And it was very like confusing.
Because you loved it.
No, I didn't love it. It was almost like going back to that space of being like, meh about it.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of how I always felt with sex with men, was just like, eh.
Yeah.
Like it's something
I can
that
do
you
it.
do. I can do it, but
Yeah.
Papa John's when you're starving.
It's
right,
exactly. It's still
exactly.
okay.
It's Papa John's.
Yeah.
It's still okay.
It's still okay.
Like, okay.
It's still cheese and bread.
But then there's like gourmet pizza, you know, in Rome.
Then I've had Verrazano, and I'm like, shit.
Right. It's not Tuscany.
100%.
Not Tuscany.
Not Tuscany. How about you? Have you had dreams like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was it like?
Same as you. Like,
Yeah.
just kind of like blasé.
Yeah.
I
Or like,
have all kinds of wild dreams.
I do.
though.
I have the weirdest fucking
Yeah.
dreams. Like, we could go on for days about how messed up my dreams are.
Yeah.
But
That'll be another episode.
Exactly. It's true. But do you, like, I'd be curious around, like, Melissa and I talk about, we notice gay people. Like, or I'll be like, if I meet some woman at Paideia, let's say at the kids' school, we're volunteering together, and then I find out, like, at an event, she brings her wife and she's gay. I'm like, oh, like, my jaw's dropped.
Yeah.
I'm tapping Maria.
Yeah.
So-and-so's
Like,
freaking
we
gay.
gotta go talk to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta go talk to them. And Maria's like, what? This is so dumb. I'm like, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Like, I've known this woman. I had no idea she's married to a woman.
Yeah.
Or like, she obviously didn't need to tell me. Like, she didn't feel the need. Like, I want to, when I meet those people, expose myself.
I
of
want like a code word,
like
or
a
something.
code word. Like, I give you the tap.
Yeah.
We're both
Yeah.
in this. Do you see women and think that, or like, does that ever happen for you, Jamie?
What do you mean?
Like, you're in a restaurant and then you're like, oh my God, she's gay. Or like, do you even notice gay people?
I mean, I think so. I think it depends on where I am. Like this past weekend when I was visiting my sister in Jefferson, we were at this little wine bar, and it was, everybody in there was like in their 60s, white straight couples. And then this gay couple walked in. Two
Girls?
men.
Oh, two men.
One was the black guy, actually. And both of us.
And this is outside of Atlanta.
And this
like
is outside
close
of
to
Atlanta.
Athens,
This is like,
Okay,
you
so
know, in the
biracial
country.
gay.
So I think, yeah, biracial and gay.
questionable
So I-
territory for
Yeah.
people who are not.
well, I kind of wanted
in
to
Georgia.
swoop
Yeah.
in there and create like a protective barrier around them.
Right, like you're safe here.
But
I got your back.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
But I think sometimes it's remarkable because of the environment that you're in. Like my
Right.
sister, the first thing she noticed was that there was a black guy in the room, and the first thing I noticed was that there are two men, right? Because, you know, double minority in this particular situation that we're in. So it's remarkable. I think when it's like unexpected, you can't help but notice. But I think when you're fresh out of an experience, a tumultuous experience of figuring out your own relationship to your sexuality and wanting to be out and comfortable in the world and to feel belonging and to feel like you can still be a part of your community in the way that you were before in your straight marriage. When you see people that are living the life that you've fought so hard to create a safe place for, it's exciting.
That's true.
It's like when you were pregnant. Didn't you notice every single
Yeah,
pregnant
pregnant
person?
lady. Yeah, that's true.
Didn't you feel like everybody's pregnant?
And now I never
Right?
noticed.
And now I
Yeah.
don't think I remember the last time I saw a pregnant person, right?
No, you're right.
So you're kind of, you know, your attention is biased around the thing that feels really relevant and
To what
important
you're doing.
to what you're experiencing and going through. So I think that's just a cognitive psychology phenomenon that happens.
Also, like gay people like group together, you know, and like you're drawn to each other. So I just went to Belize for one of Marina's friends' birthdays. And she has like this great support system of friends. And so, I mean, it was like a group of, I think, between 15 to 18 of us.
All gay.
Not all gay. There was a
Okay.
few straight people mixed in there, but for the most part, we're all gay. And we go on like one of these excursions, like a hike through the jungle. And there's a couple there that's on their honeymoon. And they're just like baffled by us. And they're like, how do you guys all know each other? Because they're not connecting that we're all gay. Because I think out of everybody, like Marina and I were like one of like two couples. And so this married couple is just like, but wait, like, do you guys work together?
Yeah, like what is this women connection?
Like, whoever was answering them was just giving them very vague answers of like, oh, we're just friends and we're here for someone's birthday. But she's like, but how?
Yeah, like wait,
how do you know so many people?
Does this woman have any friends?
So sadly,
what's going on with
I know.
that?
I'm like, did anyone come to your wedding?
Right.
But I so badly just want to be like, we're all gay. Like,
but also, like, why wouldn't just a group of women go on a trip together?
I guess because it was a lot. Well, it wasn't all women. It was like guys and girls.
Okay.
So
you should have been like, it's our church group.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's my Bible study.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's just it. Like we all just kind of like come together. Like we didn't have anything else in common. You know, like not working together. I think there was a few siblings in the group, but you know, it's just like we all have that commonality.
And is that enough? That's what I think what I'm finding. Yeah. Like as I'm more out and we're out with gay couples, we have straight friends too. And we're finding that like maybe the gay thing was cool. I'm still really into it, but I'm almost like I missed my straight friends. Like I probably have a lot more in common with a lot of them that were, not a lot, but I mean, there are couples we have over that were like, wow, that was so fun. And it wasn't just because they're gay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's something really cool about having just diversity in your friendships for all kinds of reasons.
Right.
And there's something nice about having groups of friends where you have like a couple of really core important things in common.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. I mean, we hang out with some people that we have some disagreements, about certain things politically or whatever. And
is that fun or is it like stressful?
It can be fun sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that it depends on what you're kind of needing and looking for socially. Right. Especially when you're coming out or when you're negotiating all these really big kind of hard things. I think it feels maybe even more important to have community. Yeah. Or to be surrounded by people who really identify or get or relate with what you're going through. True. So I think, there's different types of friendships and groups that, kind of fit with the season of your life. Yeah. In different ways. Like you might outgrow a certain kind of friend. I mean, there were friends that I had that I spent like every weekend with that I kind of just outgrew because I don't want to go to the bar anymore. That's it. Yeah. It's like it was a friendship based on a mutual interest in
drinking.
Right. Exactly. Drinking and getting into trouble together, Yeah. That's funny. So that time has passed. And so it turns out not as much substance beyond that.
I know we're running low on time and I did want to hit on that one topic that we talked about an hour ago. But one thing that we see like a common theme of is like calling the end to a relationship. And this goes for getting a divorce. It goes for same-sex relationships where, you kind of like, it's over. You need to call it, but you don't want to be the bad guy. Yeah. And it's ultimately like, I think boils down to how difficult it is to know that you're hurting someone's feelings.
Oh God.
Like you want them to be okay so bad.
Yeah. And it's like, what do you say? And even when you say, like I've said to people before, like, I just don't want to be in a relationship, and like, it's ultimately that's not the case because I am in a relationship.
You just didn't want to be in a relationship with
that person. Yeah. And that's nothing against that person.
Of course.
But, it starts to feel a little personal when then they see you in a relationship. And it's like, but you just said, but what is it in our core that makes it so that it's so hard to hurt someone's feelings like that?
Because you're a good person.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no. You are a good person.
I mean, I think that's literally the answer. You're good people. You're good people. Of course you don't want to hurt someone, especially the most important person in your life, especially if they're the father of your kids. Right. There's nothing that I can say that's going to make that any easier. And I wouldn't want to make that any easier because that is the nature of being a compassionate, loving person who had made a really sacred commitment in a lot of people's minds. So it's not that you need to feel less bad about it, but you need to be able to hold like all the different things that are true at the same time and know that integrity is not defined by avoiding hurting people's feelings.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That is.
Yeah.
Right? Because we sometimes think of it that way. How could I devastate my husband who's so devoted to me? That's not in alignment with my integrity. Well, wait a second. Is that what integrity means?
Right.
Or is integrity about living your life from a really authentic place, from a true place, and truth is always in alignment with integrity. Mm-hmm. So,
and it is like if you say, like, if I was on the other side, I wouldn't want someone to like stay with me.
And that's exactly why this is
because
about
they feel
integrity.
sorry. Yeah.
Because you're basically saying, I don't want you to be with me because you don't think I can handle the hurt.
Yeah.
Because, you feel
trapped in some way.
Trapped or bad for me. That's about you sacrificing something that will always come back to haunt the relationship, by the way. Right? Like, so I feel like it's a really courageous thing to be willing to hurt someone if hurting them is in alignment with your integrity. And if the way that you go about doing the hurtful thing is respectful and patient and in alignment with the other aspects of your integrity, like, I'm going to do this from a place of honesty and from a boundaried place. I'm not going to, cheat on you as a way to kind of get this part of me satisfied so that I don't have to do the hard work of hurting you.
I mean, I think sometimes that's why people cheat, ultimately, because that's the only way that someone's going to leave. Right. It's like they have to really cut you deep.
To blow up the marriage.
Yeah.
So that maybe the partner has no choice but to leave you.
Right.
That's a really selfish thing to do.
Absolutely.
Right? So it takes an enormous amount of integrity and courage to be able to say, from an honest place, I'm doing this from a place of love, but I have to go. It's my truth, and I know. And it doesn't actually even matter the reason, because when it comes down to it, if your deepest knowing from that quiet, wise place inside tells you it's time to leave, then it's time to leave.
Yeah, but so many times people want an explanation, like why?
Well, sure,
and
I think you can. You
can
provide
you say,
an explanation.
I'm gay?
Well, but I mean, even if just like in general with being in a relationship now, like and trying to end it,
like previous ones where you've had to like break someone's heart,
right?
Like
and it's
girls
like
you're dating, women.
It always sucks.
Yeah,
that's been like an unexpected thing with dating women is I didn't realize how difficult it is to hurt, especially a woman's feelings, man's feelings. And, men can get over it, or maybe it's also that I just felt that they didn't feel as deeply, but like like women, I feel like we feel things deeper.
Yeah.
And so to just know that you're like hurting
it feels like
someone,
such a judgment
so
on them
hard.
of like you're not good enough in some way.
And listen, there are whole books written about, one of them is called Codependent No More, about how women sometimes sacrifice their own truth in order to avoid hurting someone because they can't tolerate being that responsible for somebody else's feelings.
Right.
So there really is a genuine difficulty with this that we have sometimes.
Is it people like, what would you say are things that like bring someone to be more like, I guess I'm thinking about just Melissa and I, because I know Melissa deeply. She knows my stuff deeply. That like, there were things like, I feel like I'm more of I had the alcoholic parent, I have abandonment, but I'm not as willing, like Melissa will let people in that I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like this person has hurt you. They've done shitty fucking things to you. It's enough. Mm-hmm. Like I would get mad at her. Like, why are you allowing this person access to you? They're damaging you. And it's like, she was so much more willing to like keep the peace. And those were even her words of like, it's not worth it. Like, I'd just rather keep the peace. And I'm thinking, I feel like I come from more of trauma in my childhood. Maybe not, but like I had these things, but it's like in some ways I'm much more willing to say, I will not be treated that way.
Yeah. You're talking about boundaries and the ways that we have to hold boundaries with ourselves before we can know how to do them with other people.
But she is nicer than me. Like she definitely is.
I mean, nice is a subjective. I don't even
Jaime.
know how to define nice.
She's nicer.
But I feel like the question that you're really asking is Melissa just nicer than you, or is she
dealing with some else from her childhood
exactly
that we haven't identified?
Well,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Because your willingness to, I mean, if you think about it, hurting someone by breaking up with them is just an extreme way of holding a boundary. I will not be with someone that I don't want to be with. That's a boundary.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're better at that. Like when you ended a relationship, you were very clear about it.
But kindly clear.
Kindly, yes.
Yeah.
But when I've ended relationships, I'm very like,
she leaves it kind of loose. I don't know. And then I'm like, why would you give this person 2 hours of, like, I would know they met up. And I'm like, why does she get 2 hours? Did you forget what happened 2 weeks ago?
So the work for Melissa would be to slow down.
This was also 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. It was
Give
a
her
while
some
ago.
credit, man.
I am. Yeah, no, she's brilliant. She's brilliant in a million ways. But it was interesting to me how much more willing she was.
And I also, at that time, had not, I mean, I've done so much therapy since then. But you're right. Like, I do like to keep the peace, and I don't like to have any animosity between anyone.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know?
Listen,
I'm saying it's an admirable quality that I don't have.
Yeah, the thing that you have probably unpacked in therapy is understanding that ambivalence, right? Like the ambivalence of doing the hard thing of following, your truth and ending a relationship versus the part of you that really values peace and harmony in relationships and not wanting to cause someone pain. Those are two values that sometimes come up against each other. Nothing's pathological about that, but I think that's where the work is, to sort of slow down, to kind of, pull apart what are the sources and influences that kind of fuel my ambivalence. And it sounds like, you've been able to come to the other side of that, that now you have a more solid sense of grounding in your own integrity.
Yeah.
And so you're probably more willing to do the hard thing of holding a limit with somebody or breaking up with them. So
I would say that's true.
It's all about, growth. Growth is it's not pretty. People, there's a million self-help books out there about how empowering it feels to follow your truth but it's ugly sometimes. Yeah. It's not easy. It's messy. It's clunky.
And I think too, like having been in a marriage of where it was just this kind of safe space where there wasn't like any conflict or anything. And now to be, when you go out there and you start dating and it's like, oh wow, like I suddenly have to deal with like really tough conversations.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not used to that.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
And
walking away.
It's been a learning experience for sure.
You're walking away from easy and directly into
the fire.
Not easy. Mm-hmm. And, that's why I think you have this very successful podcast, because you're having all these women saying, yeah, so how do I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not easy. And
so that's why you're here, Jamie.
Yes. Now, if only I'd had this conversation a year ago, I could have saved a friendship, but.
Oh, well.
It happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and that's just it. We're learning all the time.
You're learning. You're going to have to fuck up a lot before you get to the place where you're like, okay, I really learned exactly what I needed to learn,
right,
to proceed with a little more grace. Everybody has to be willing for it to be really messy.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to be a really hot mess.
I secretly was, and not that secretly, probably.
Yeah. And you guys are, you were able to do this podcast, for example, because you had come relatively to the other side, somewhat to the other side of it. It's really hard to even talk about this stuff when you're in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
So true.
Yeah.
Right? So
can you imagine if we had tried to record a podcast when we're like in the thick of it?
No.
Like we would have been bawling.
Yeah,
bawling,
exactly.
and not knowing what we're like. It would have been horrible advice.
You would have
sure.
been excited and
we probably would have had more listeners.
Yeah, your listeners would have been like, okay, now
what's next?
Don't do that.
Right.
Turn
Maybe
back
a new
now.
Netflix series.
Yeah, it's
Step
true.
away from the microphone.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I remember times even being out. Like, I know you got to run, Jamie, but and hoping I don't run into people because I was that big of a hot mess.
Oh yeah. Like no one speaks to me because I might just vomit tears.
You might need to hibernate with a couple of good therapists and a friend or two, and not come out for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jamie, we appreciate your time.
Yes, my pleasure.
So valuable.
Always.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And if you want to reach out to Jamie, do you want to give your contact info?
Yes.
Your people are always welcome to visit my website. I am full right now. But I love seeing. I have a few.
And you also can maybe recommend people, which we can talk about too. Because
I mean the thing that I always kind of respond with, including some personalized referrals sometimes, is just Psychology Today is a really great resource because there's the therapist directory. You plug in your zip code, a couple of words about what you're looking for, and you will get a list of profile pictures, bios, and information about availability. The really hard thing right now is just a lot of people that I know are full.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I can... maybe
how often do you have space? Like if you're full, like is it like 6 months maybe an opening opens up?
Usually that's how it works. But
Okay.
since the pandemic, honestly, people are really kind of in this for the long term. So a lot of my clients right now are people I've seen for years or who have returned since the pandemic.
Okay.
I have a wait list of about 3 or 4 people that would be brand new people. A couple of them are your listeners.
Hey.
And so
Let them in, Jamie. Let them in.
I would love to. I have added 3 new spots.
Okay.
So I'm up pretty extended right now.
So what you're saying is our listeners do get priority.
Actually, sometimes they do, because I love working with people that are kind of struggling with this stuff. I would love to figure out logistically how to do a group like Melissa does.
Yeah.
Okay, do it.
We
have everybody
I think-
wants
I
it
know.
so bad.
It is so hard.
Yeah,
though.
it's logistically just hard, but that is something that I do think about, and I would love to be able to offer. But the best way to find out or get updates about my availability is just check my website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
ThriveCenter.com.
Mm-hmm. ThriveCenter.com.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jamie.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Want to support the Lesbian Chronicles podcast? Rate us and write a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify.
We love listener feedback. If you'd like to share your story, email us at melissaandallie@gmail.com. That's Melissa, MELISA, and Allie, ALLI, @gmail.com. Or follow us on Instagram at Lesbian Chronicles.